I'd like to welcome our guest speaker for today, Bill Vaith. Bill is a senior systems analyst at Societe Generale investment bank in New Jersey. He has been a client of ours for over 15 years, initially with our DataStore product, and then for the last 10 years also with our Policy Hub product. So he's got a lot of experience working with us with our solutions. He's currently involved in a very interesting set of projects, which is what he's going to talk to you about today, which is using those two solutions, those two Mitratech solutions, but also integrating with a whole bunch of other solutions that he's got running inside the bank to create what he calls a total GRC solution. And he's solving a number of regulatory issues, and he's also solving a number of business problems while he does it. And it's going to be very, hopefully, insightful for you all to hear his story. He'll describe his solutions, how he's put them together, and what his vision is for the future. So without any more ado, I'll hand over to Bill. All yours, Bill.
Thank you, Mark. Hi, everybody. Today has been a challenge in general. Right before I got on this WebEx, my account's locked. I couldn't access any of my applications or the presentation. So I'm glad to say that is now rectified, and I'm on the call with you guys. So I wish I was there with you. I couldn't. We're really opening up phase one of the Policy Hub BWise integration. So I'm actually stuck here in 245 Park Avenue. So I'm hoping everybody's having fun, and I figure I'll just kick this off. And I don't mind answering questions if anybody has. Some pretty interesting stuff that we've gone through over the last few years, actually. I was going to say couple, but it's been longer than that. So let me just dive right in and give you guys a quick summary. So there am I. Looking a lot happier there than I am right now, actually. So DataStore. DataStore is an archival platform that we use to store our non-structured data within our environment. Non-structured data basically meaning reports, images, and uploaded documents for different departments. I call it non-structured because reports can basically fall under any format. The reason why we're storing this information is to meet our books and records requirement, in particular for 17A, which is a FINRA need. So at any point in time that we need to present somebody with a particular client statement, confirmation, our GLs, all the batch data that we house within our organization, at least for the EMEA region right now, is stored within DataStore. The reason why I say structured and not really including unstructured data, which is more of the database dumps, more of database tables or client audit files we store in a different application, which I've talked to Mark about. I think we should actually integrate both platforms, but story for another day. So what I felt we should do is maybe just go over a quick history or a timeline of where the software has kind of gone over the last, I don't know, 16, 17 years. So in 2001, we integrated DataStore 32 and rolled it out to our SG staff. It replaced two legacy applications, one called StoreQM, which is a SunGuard product, and another product called COOL, C-O-O-L, Computer Output Online, is what it stood for. So we kind of used the application for its bare bones for about 6 or 7 years, and then we started to see the power within the API. So we had our iTech engineers start to ask questions about storage facilities and how we can kind of work the DataStore backend into dealing with other front ends, and that's when we introduced the CS portal. The CS portal is actually something that's accessed by our users globally. So if instead of them housing data locally on share drives, what they're doing at one point in time is taking any data that's over 30 days old and then housing it within the DataStore environment via the API, and they were doing a callback via the API. So the reports are coming back actually within the portal without doing a call to the application itself. So the people are using, our users are actually using DataStore globally without even realizing they're using the tool. We furthered our API integration with a statement delivery process. And also with a compliance checker, as you see there, but I'll touch on statement delivery first. Statement delivery, the bank side was looking for a way to provide our customers their cash and collateral statements cleanly and in an efficient manner. Also one that met security measures for the bank. So we were able to create a repository within DataStore that housed these text files, and we indexed the files, so basically pulling the metadata out of the reports. And we were able to build a process where we're extracting both the cash and collateral, where taking both and merging them into a password-protected PDF file and pushing it out to every cash and collateral client that has statements for us. It's been in, 9 years now it's been running, and we've had very, very few issues with it. And operations was really happy with it because it was something, they were tired of really stuffing envelopes, and it was something we were doing for a long time. So very happy clients on my side. A compliance checker. As we know, compliance is really a stickler for being able to do their daily checkoffs. As far as being able to see their reports and their data. So we need to implement a way that our IT staff could be informed before the clients themselves were actually missing any data. So what we did is we built an API integration compliance report checker, which basically runs a pick list, which is just a generation of information for a particular index field, and populates that data into an email, basically comparing a report to a date, and they take that information that is pushed out and they do a compare on their side to make sure that all of the information that they need on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis is loaded into the tool. 2013 DSX in the Americas and within Canada. So we were living with the DS32 product, and High Tech at the time, and now Mitratech, upgraded to a DSX.net product, which is something we really wanted to migrate to, consider the added functionalities of the tool. We migrated both the AMER region and the Canadian region in 2013. The reason why I mentioned Canadian a bit separate than the AMER region is because there are different sets of rules and regulations that we need to abide by when we're housing any data that is actually generated from trades in Canada. Compliance was very, very tough on us being able to house the data within an AMER-based tool, but the way DSX works, we were able to actually house the back end, or the depot, as the guys call it, of the reports within a share that was located in Montreal. While the data was FTP'd to us within the AMER side, we processed it, deleted it, and then the data was resided on the depots within Canada. So did some presentations for compliance, showed them really the structure of what we wanted to build, and they were very happy with the results. We were able to merge two systems, enabling the bank to save quite a bit of money instead of implementing a brand new system within the Canadian region. DSX workflow for VOLCKER and FCM, basically straightforward. We needed ways for people globally to sign off on attestations. Basically signing off saying that they understood their needs as far as VOLCKER and FCM are concerned, and we were able to implement a DSX workflow to do that. 2016, we upgraded the AMER region to a new version of DSX, and that included UTC patches. So as part of DFA, we needed to house data within the system to be able to basically show the data coming in on a universal timestamp. So we did that, which is something that Mitratech didn't do before. They created the process for us, and it turned out pretty slick and very nice. Search, we're getting now up to 2017 and into the future. Search display website, which is what I'm going to talk about shortly. The integration into Archer. We needed a way for our traders to be able to basically click on a URL, have their data come back that they can review, and then sign off on within the Archer tool. As we know, front office, the more basic interactions they're doing and the more manual process they have to deal with, the less money they're making. So we want to make everything as quick and as clean as possible, and I'll show you what we did as far as making that happen in the next couple of slides. And then moving forward into 2017, 2018, we're looking at an automated archival of retired policies from the Policy Hub tool into DataStore. And the guys put together something pretty slick that we're looking forward to getting. So Sorry if that was a little long-winded. I just wanted to have everybody have a decent background on where we are with the tool. So let me jump in here. So what we're looking at here is a screenshot of the Archer platform that we built for WSP sign-offs. So what we're looking at in the circle is basically the URL that the trader would click on to pull up their WSP data. From there, the metadata assigned within the URL in the search display website would then call back the fields that the reports would need to be viewed on. So we're looking at the top. It's the template that we're defining. And then if you look here, we're defining all the WSPs that fall with the 1.59. And you can see at the bottom here within the split screen, although the WSPs with 159 were brought back. And the trader could easily just click on the grid below to review each of the Excel documents. If they, for any reason, wanted to bring out the Excel document in its native format, all they would need to do is click open, and it would bring the Excel spreadsheet out. So it's pretty slick. So after they review their data, all they would need to do is come back into the WSP platform, and then basically click and choose whether they've completed their WSP process for the day. Pretty straightforward stuff, but it is giving us a real opportunity to integrate the software into the front office, which is something we really haven't had an opportunity to do within the last few years. I want to jump right into Policy Hub, and then after we finish, I'll take any questions that you guys have. So Policy Hub, what is Policy Hub? It's basically what it sounds like. It's a hub where we store all of our policies and procedures within the bank, in particular for compliance. Implementation was in 2007, and HR really pushed us to have this done as part of the new hire process because they were handing out floppy disks and CDs for people to read, or they were pushing paper for people to sign off on, which in general is a risk. In 2010, compliance decided to jump on board, and they rolled out their manuals, their EIP process, and Canada jumped on board for part of the new hire process. So the manuals, what does that mean? That means that any new hire who would come in, they would have their compliance manual for New York, for example, or for full SGUS pushed to them where they would have to read it, and then they would electronically sign off on it. And of course, after the sign off, the document would then move from their inbox, which resembles kind of what we look in Outlook today, into their library. So if they needed to go back and have a look at something that they signed off on, they can easily go into the tool where all the data is indexed and do a search on something, for example, if they wanted to look at something on FINRA. They would have the ability to just basically click on the library, do a search, and find all their data. 2011, I had compliance reach out to me because they needed some assistance with getting some training done. So the training was really just delivering a PowerPoint document with some associated questions to it as a proof of concept. So what we did is we delivered the PowerPoint, and we assigned a test to it, a quick 5-6 answer test, just as a proof that they understood really what they read, and if we need to go back for any audit purposes at a later time, everything was stored within the database, so you can do a quick report to provide it to any auditor or regulator that needed to know it. 2012, FTC swap dealer certification. So I had one of my friends in compliance walk up to me. There was a regulatory requirement that had to be done very quickly. I think we had a 6-week window, and they basically asked me, how do we do this? The ITech liaison for compliance dropped a 10-page document in front of me and said, Bill, we need these questions transposed electronically, and we need the data collected so we could send it to the Fed within this time frame. What can you do? So basically, we built a questionnaire that was mandatory for all the traders to answer. We transposed, and it actually looked pretty slick. We transposed almost the formatting within the hard copy electronically, and we were able to push out, I think there might have been somewhere about maybe 60 or 70 questions. And we were able to push that data into the tool and then extract it into CSV format, upload that information, and send it to the Fed. 2013, business continuity decided that they wanted to manage their high-level firm-wide BCP plans within the tool. So when we're talking high-level, we're talking all the managing directors within the EMEA organization that had to sign off on the process. So we kind of chipped away on using the workflow or single-tier workflow, which I call it, the review process, but we did it with a PDF. They weren't able to edit the document, but they were still able to make comments where the business continuity team can go back and update their plans. 2014, HR jumped on board. We wanted to expand training. We were paying a lot to an attorney. to come in and to speak to people speak to managers about green card processing and bringing in new hires. Obviously, we're a French organization. We bring a lot of people in from different regions, and when that happens, especially now with our new president, there has to be a lot of paperwork done in processing. So instead of paying an attorney to come in and do this all the time, we had the ability to just basically make a video of one attorney doing it, putting a really slick PowerPoint presentation with the video, giving the training. Once the manager signs off that they finished it and they have all the information they need, there was also a reference document of a questionnaire that they're able to print out, basically answer the questions and scan over to the attorneys. I also set up something within the reporting within Policy Hub that I emailed an audit report to our particular attorney that deals with us every single week. So anytime that somebody signs off on the process, all she needs to do is pick up the phone and call them because she knows they're already trained to finish the process. Actually saved us quite a bit of money. A UTC piece, if you remember, I mentioned that with DataStore. We did the same because there was also a DFA audit point for Policy Hub. We needed to know the times policies were uploaded in UTC and when they were shared. 2017, a lot of fun stuff going on with BWise, which I'm going to talk about right now. So let me jump to the next slide. And if I'm going too fast, just shout out. I had a lot of coffee today. All right, so Policy Hub reporting integration, it's all about the metadata. So what we did is we really wanted to examine the way Policy Hub worked, and we needed to find a way to get the metadata within the tool put into BWise and for some slick presentations, which I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes. So what we found out is the feedback summary report contained, I'd say, probably 85% of the information that we needed to present to BWise within the tool, so we can have a nice data integration of the two applications. So what we did is we basically made some changes to the report. We made the name of the policy to a title in the report. We changed to added by author. And remember, we're doing this to match the metadata fields within the BWise policy management tool. On the behalf of, we made an editable field. So whatever information came into the tool, they'd be able to change within BWise and basically keep the data if they wanted to from the Policy Hub system or change it. We changed source to policy SME. Publication status, we added status of the most recent published version. So that means while they're in the BWise tool, they can get a quick update on where the information or where the policy is as far as the status. Classification to scope. I know that doesn't sound like much, but it's really what we built the structure on in the tool, and I'll show you that in a sec too. Date range. So it was important for the next feedback reminder to be something that the compliance team can search on. The reason why that is because they need to be able to understand what particular time frame they need to review a policy. If they are supposed to review a policy by a particular date and they don't, it could be a Fed issue with us. So we wanted to make sure they had the ability to not only see that within the reporting, but to be able to run a report within Policy Hub that will give them a particular time frame. Policy ID, that is basically an identifier within the database for one particular policy. So we needed to have this policy ID available because within the BWise tool, we wanted a URL to be present where they can click on it and then basically bring up the policy right from the BWise tool itself from Policy Hub. Lastly, an API extract. So we're a global organization. It just so happens right now that we only have an AMER region license, an America's region license for Policy Hub, which I think is going to change. If we were going to present these policies in our intranet for anyone within the Paris or anywhere in Asia to look at these, we'd be breaching our contract. And I know the Mitratech guys would not be happy about that. So what we did is we kind of laid out a plan for the API to extract the PDFs, store them locally on the web server, then create URLs that will hit those PDFs and store them on our intranet site. This way we have the data updated. What we do is we run an AutoSys job, the AutoSys scheduler, that updates these URLs 12 hours a day, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. So this way we don't miss any windows as far as the Fed is concerned, meeting what we need to meet as far as presenting policies to our employees. All right, so what we're looking at here is, again, it's all about the metadata. This is a copy of the feedback summary report. So again, this is something that we can look at, and it's pretty slick. We had the guys put in the SG headers within the reporting. You could see all the information within the columnized Excel spreadsheet if they wanted to run macros or anything on this to pull the data. What I'm actually delivering to BWise is a CSV file, an automated scheduled run within the tool that writes the file out to a share drive. So not only can you write to a share drive, you can actually send these reports out in an automated fashion that you could schedule within the tool via email. And this is kind of what I would send out to the staff if they wanted to see it. Now, if they were doing a search and they wanted to understand when they needed to look at the next batch of policies, I know it's kind of hard to see, but here is the next periodic review date. What we did is we set up a to and from date, say the calendar year 2017. So anything within the 2017 year, I email them once a week as a reminder just to make sure they're keeping these in focus. I also have a separate one that goes out once a month to the compliance staff for 2018 policies. So this way they have everything at the touch of their fingertips. All right. So what's next for the applications? We're looking at an expansion of DataStore workflow for DFA. We kind of built the DFA process already, but we haven't had the opportunity to roll it out. And the interesting reason why is because we're actually going to see if we can use Policy Hub to pull back some of the information needed for the people globally to get this, to really get the DFA workflow going. So I'm hoping that before the end of the year, we're going to have DFA out. NYD FS 504, which is a New York State regulation for all financial organizations. We need to send out attestations. Within these attestations, people need to be able to upload documents, share them, and then go for approval. So the DSX workflow tool is perfect for that. It kind of resembles what we did for VOLCKER starting back in 2016 for sign-off on 2015. Search display website, I kind of talked about that already. But we're doing some other stuff with it that is kind of cool. So we're not only looking to house these WSP-based reports within the tool, we're looking to build what we're calling an email listener. So if there's any particular email that's pushed to a specific email address, we're going to look for DataStore to kind of query that or ping that email address, save the email, and if there's attachments, save those attachments within the tool, which then can be brought up within Archer WSP. It's something that we haven't built yet. It's something we're just on the cusp of putting the SOW for, but again, it's more integration of middle and front office of the archival tool. Worm storage. So I mentioned 17A before. 17A encompasses quite a few regulatory concerns, and one of the biggest is worm storage. So as of right now, we're not storing our data on worm, but we're looking to do that. We've already done some low-level testing with the DataStore product in worm, and it seems to be working okay. Over the next couple of months, we're really going to push hard to make sure that the data that needs to be housed properly, including most of the DFA data, is stored within the proper storage. So more integrations with SG and Mitchtech working to meet regulatory requirements. DataStore expansion, again, WS reporting with the watch folders. So really cool API stuff that we really want to kind of expand on to build the relationship. And I mentioned this earlier, automated archive of legacy policies. So I just want to touch a little bit more on that. So what we're looking to do is have a folder within the Policy Hub tool. And once a new policy is uploaded and then published, and the keyword is published because that's when you're making it live to the populace, the older version of the policy will then automatically get archived into the DataStore tool, meeting regulatory requirements. And what they're doing now is actually taking an older copy and they're uploading them manually and attaching the metadata. So within this kind of concept, we're not only going to expand the metadata, it's going to be all the metadata we touched on within that summary report that they could search on and bring back. And of course, that will go really well as far as any audit concerns we have of being able to prove, A, that we're storing them, and B, the metadata associated to them is also how we're housing them within Policy Hub. Continued BY integration. So what we'd like to do in part 2 of this, and I don't know how much Mark knows about this, but so listen up, Mark. What we'd like to have done is instead of us taking PDF copies after massaged regulations are done, we want to have an API basically roll of an almost finished policy from one platform into another. and from there automatically assign these policies to a particular group within the bank, and have basically that push from Policy Hub go straight out to the compliance or legal teams for their review. This is something that we talked about in the very beginning, but it kind of fell off the wayside because we really wanted to get everything in as quickly as possible with the first level of integration. So part 2 should be coming soon. Compliance policy management worldwide. So now since we're looking into the BWise integration, it's kind of popped up on the Paris and Asia side of how we're managing our policies. And the Mitch Tech team was kind enough to give a really nice presentation of what the tool does. And of course, I went in on how we're managing our policies here. And it seems that France and Asia are both very interested in looking into the tool. So we got some pricing from the Mitch Tech guys, which is, in my opinion, very fair. And it's kind of sitting with Paris right now to see if they'd like to move forward. I touched on this a bit earlier. So DFA, we're waiting for some risk control information to get back to us before we can really push out the workflow to the DFA team. So we're looking at Policy Hub to manage that risk control via questionnaires. And what they liked within the Policy Hub tool is the ability to send reminders to keep people on their toes, and also, of course, when I mentioned earlier, the reporting. So we have a real idea of who's signing off on what they need to in what particular time frames. Policy Hub training expansion for accounting and finance. So we were looking to have our people in accounting and finance understand particular rules and regulations. And these rules and regulations needed to be presented within a PowerPoint and then tested. What's really great about the process here is we have a rolling allotment of 30 questions. So if somebody has to take the test again because they failed, they will not get the same 10 questions. They will go back and get a mix of the 30 to keep everything kind of regulated, to make sure that they're basically not jotting down answers and then going back. So Policy Hub has some real power within its testing for training and presentation. Okay, so I know I spoke a lot. I know I spoke quickly. If I was a bit too quick, my apologies, but I just want to open the floor for any questions anybody might have.
Okay, thank you, Bill. That's a very comprehensive. You have been a busy guy.
Yes, sir.
So I think there's a question from the floor. I don't think Bill can hear you from there, but if you call out your question, I can repeat it for you.
Okay. So the question is, thank you, Bill, for that. My name is William, by the way. Thank you, Bill, and I have not drank as much coffee as you today, but I'm sorry, I may have missed a couple of things. So I had 2 questions. One was, how do you currently handle changes in regulatory changes in regulations that may impact policies? How do you sort of manage that process of the regulatory change impacting the policy and Policy Hub? And then the second question is, do you capture the attestations in Policy Hub from employees and then promulgate that information into your other risk systems? And if so, how do you do that?
Okay, thank you. There's two questions, Bill. First one,
sure.
Because you probably didn't hear that one. So the first one is how you manage regulatory change. So where you have changing regulation that affects policies, how do you manage the process of, how do you manage that change management essentially? And then, well, actually answer that question first, and I'll follow up with the second one in a minute.
Okay, so at this point, it's the reason why we brought BWise into the bank. I mean, everything was being done manually. We would get regulations pushed to us, and they were managed basically in a very large Excel spreadsheet that our attorneys would very carefully and diligently manage. So what we're doing now is we're looking to automate these regulatory processes to feed BWise directly. All right, so understand what Policy Hub does. Our users were not happy with the front end of BWise, and because of the integration of the tool from years of usage from new hire processes and others, they wanted a different way to present the policies to the populace within the bank. And since people were familiar with Policy Hub, and it really has a very simple, easy front end, they decided to go with the integration of Policy Hub into BWise. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah? Yeah. Okay. Yes, I think so. The follow-up, Bill, was affirmations. So when you publish policies out to your users and they affirm those policies, do those affirmations then flow into any other of the wider sort of GRC ecosystem? Does that information go into any of the other products, and how do you do that if that's the case?
As of now, not yet, but there have been conversations of taking that information. I think it's going to be part of a part 2 for BWise. And you know, guys, not to interrupt the questions, but I did kind of jump the gun a little bit. I wanted to show you a little bit of the integration of BWise. So if you don't mind, let me take a step back and quickly just show you what it looks like and where the metadata was used. Would you mind?
That's great. Yeah, please go ahead.
All right, sure. So when you log into the tool, and let me just, you have a few options, and where we're going to look is internal control. And from there, we want to go to framework and go to regulations and policies. So I mentioned to you before that we needed to build a framework by scope. Scope is really where the classifications of these policies in particular areas. So we have different divisions of the bank, as you see. A good example would go to SGAS, which is pretty much the broker-dealer. And then we can go to, let's see if I can find books and records here. Since we're talking about books and records, we might as well go to it. So the information that is supplied from Policy Hub, which includes author, which includes a description of the policy itself, which includes the scope, and includes the URL. So if somebody's in the BWise tool and they wanted to go look at the latest policy, all they would need to do is click on a URL. And because I'm an administrator, it's asking me which one I want to view, but 95% of the population in the bank is not, so they'll just be brought to the policy. And there's the policy that they're able to review within PDF format. So if you notice, the URL actually specifies the Policy Hub server. That's because we're taking the URL from the database upon a SQL query extract and populating that information into BWise. So before I mentioned to you that we identify with a singular number within the tool, and there is the number that we identify the policy with. So it's a static URL. Anytime there's an update to the policy, and of course, like I mentioned before, it's published, you're going to always get the latest document, always the latest policy that's available. So what we're looking to do, which is going to be part of the part 2 of this, is we're going to build a dashboard reporting piece that is going to take the information from Policy Hub and present it in BWise. And that's something that we're going to be talking about probably with Mark and his development staff later in the year. Okay?
Very good. Yeah, thank you very much, Bill. That's great.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Any other questions before we wrap up? Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Yes.
So, Bill, you said on the future for Policy Hub, I think that the bullet point was risk control management, and you spoke about using questionnaires. Is that to sort of get people to attest that they've got controls in place? Could you just expand on that a bit? So
the question, Bill, was about the risk assessment. There was something on one of your slides to do with risk assessment, and you're going to be using Policy Hub for that kind of program. Could you just elaborate a little bit on how you're going to use Policy Hub for that and what you're going to achieve, please?
Okay, so the risk assessment piece, I mean, there's multiple tiers. It's part of the integration to BWise. In order for us to understand where we are in a particular process, we can send out questionnaires, or we can send out attestations to basically prove that we're doing what we need to do within the tool. And that's really where I'm working with the risk assessment in it. It's basically saying, okay, there is someone within a particular area of the business, and they have to categorically sign off that they are doing particular pieces of their job that they need to do to meet reg requirements, and we're doing that within the tool, within signing off on different policies.
Okay, thank you. Any final questions before we wrap? All right. Bill, thank you very much indeed. That's been extremely insightful, so thank you very much. Very informative.
Enjoy the rest.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.